Hi, I'm Wayne Tuttle, and welcome to Chasing Legends. Welcome back to Chasing Legends. We're in October. The creepy, the scary, the unnerving stories of the Superstition Mountains. Please go down, hit the notification bell, hit the subscribe, leave comments, go to the website www.legendssuperstitionmountains.com. Looking forward to seeing everybody at the rendezvous, November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. Gates open around noon on Friday, and first come, first serve. Saturday night, most of the guest speakers will start around 5:30, 6 p.m. probably. Always kind of like it when the lights get down and we can bring our lights up and all. Should have a pretty nice group out there. Jack Sanfleece, James Simpson, a number of different people will have talking, some presentations. That being said and done, let's get into this week's eerie and scary and spooky story. I pretty much had kind of given out all the stuff I had that I could remember of being told or witnessed or been involved. So now I'm using other people's stories. This is one I actually remembered. We've had a couple people contact me, and we've done a story already from someone that contacted me I found very interesting. This one always interested me. It's in the surrounding area by the Superstition Mountains. Now, it was someone I knew. His name was Chris. I'd known him from, I think, after high school. I'd run into him probably on a job site or something somewhere. And we'd been sitting around at lunches and stuff, and this guy was talking about he picked up this piece of property. And at first, you're just kind of listening to guys like, nah, I got this piece of property. Got it for a song. And it's, some acreage. I don't remember how much he said, 3, 4, 5 acres. And it has this little shack on it, and it's in really good condition. I mean, it was at an auction. Nobody bid on it. Who could go figure? So he talked about it off and on a bit. And then one week he was talking, has anybody got any plans this weekend? Because I'd like to get a few guys out. I'll cook up a bunch of steaks, have some beer out there, but I want to dig post holes because I guess there's a bunch of missing posts for the fence. And he said, I don't want to run fence. I'll usually come along and run the wire. I just want to get some guys help with the fence posts and that stuff, kind of get things up together. Sounded interesting. I thought, well, go off for a weekend, have a steak and a beer with a couple of the guys that were, I worked with. Who cares? So I went out. It was kind of a little bit, I'd probably say a half mile, 3/4 of a mile from the nearest house. And it was kind of this kind of field area. And there was this shack out there. Now, it was all wood. It might have been painted at one time. You couldn't tell anymore. And it had like a metal roof. And I pulled up, and we kind of got the tour and kind of what we were going to do, which was there were posts missing where the fence had been. And he said, watch out, because they drilled for well in a few spots. So if you're just walking around, be careful, because those holes are still kind of open. Some of them weren't covered. But, and they weren't very big holes, but you could bust an ankle in one. But the house was interesting. It was probably 12, 15 feet deep by about 30 feet wide. Had a metal roof, and it was boards. They were just, it was very simple, uncomplicated design setup. Inside, just the framework was showing. There was nothing covering that up. There was nothing in the ceiling, which I remember Chris saying he wasn't going to do much improvement on all that because you wouldn't be having pack rats up in the attic area or space or this or that. He said it didn't really seem to matter. He hadn't been staying really inside it. And as we talked that weekend, digging post holes and having steaks and stuff, he talked the story a little about it, and I remember that. He said this old man had lived there for quite some time. He found out because he wanted to know a little of the history, who had it before, why was it abandoned. And this guy had lived there, but I guess he'd had Alzheimer's, dementia, something going on. And the story went that you would drive by, and they really didn't do anything about it or to him, but he'd just be wearing like work boots and be butt naked, just standing out there and working or doing whatever. And they thought, well, nobody lives near him, and if that's, he was friendly enough. But I guess there's other times he would be standing by the side of the road or out kind of on his property out there behind the house, and he'd be just staring off, kind of looking up. And just stand there transfixed, and they'd go out and try to talk to him and see if he was okay. And it'd take them a while to come out of this like almost trance. And they realized there was something kind of loose going on. But there was nothing they could really do. And then finally, I guess he'd had a heart attack. He was in it. He was older, so he was in his 70s or 80s. He had a heart attack in the back part of the property. Someone had went by, realized they hadn't seen him come in to pick up supplies. He had a regular kind of deal, so the little store that was nearby. So they kind of like, well, somebody should check on him. Somebody decided to stop by. As they were passing through, they went out, couldn't find him. The place was all opened up. His truck's there. They went all over, and then they found him out back. Coyotes had got to him. He died. Not something that's going to make the news, kind of just one of those things that happened. Probably had a heart attack or stroke. Something happened, and he was there by himself, died out in that field. He wasn't buried on the property, so that didn't occur. And so Chris kind of knew that bit of the history. If he knew the guy's name and he told us, I can't remember it. So we thought, that's kind of interesting. The crazy old man lived in this place and all. But the place was pretty solid, I got to say. It was solid built. The floor was solid. There was no rot in it. So it had been pretty much taken care of. He said when he got there, it had been cleaned out. There really was no personal effects, belongings, anything to it. And it actually was in pretty clean, other than dirt and dust and stuff. He said it was actually pretty clean and in really good shape. Didn't smell bad, he said, so he kind of let it be. So he was there for a while. We slept outside. I don't know why. I guess it was nice out. We probably just decided to sleep outside while we were there. And then we finished up. We did a bunch of fence post holes and stuff, probably less than we probably could have. I don't think anybody was in like a really big hurry to do this. It was because there was a lot of posts that needed to be replaced. Well, we got quite a few done. He wanted them cemented in because some of the others hadn't been cemented in, and he thought somebody's been pulling them, probably taking the wood. Some of the wood was there, but it was rotten on the ground. So we did what we were going to do, and a short while later, I was talking to him, and I said, hey, how did that all come out? How'd that go? And he said, it's the weirdest thing. He said, there's someone around there doesn't want me around there. He says, every time I show up, the door's open and the window's open. Now, the windows were like flaps, so they had a hinge at the top, and then you'd push it open, and there was a stick that would hold it open. And there was a couple on the sides and a couple in the front, nothing to the back that I remember. And he said every time he'd show up, all the windows, door, and the front door would be wide open. Nothing was ever missing. He said he'd look around. It didn't look like anybody touched anything, anybody been sleeping. It was just weird. He'd pull up, and the whole place was empty. So he was going through whatever that was and said at least nobody's stealing anything. The stuff and the materials he'd left to do the fence lines and stuff was still there. And I didn't see him for years after that. Then one day I ran into him. Now this is sometime probably in the late 90s. I'm thinking it was while I was working for Shuck Component Systems. And we ran across each other and we're talking, and I said, hey, whatever happened to that property, because he wanted to use it for hunting and, weekend trips and stuff. And I said, how did that ever work out? And he said, I actually sold it for less than I bought it. He said, I had a hard time getting rid of it. Finally got someone that actually took it up. I don't know who it was, but I worked with somebody and I finally got rid of it. He said, I had nothing but trouble there. And I was like, what kind of trouble? And he said, well, every time I showed up, doors and windows are all open. He said, every time I tried to sleep in there, it sounded like someone was pounding, or not pounding, but smacking the walls or knocking. And I'd get up, go out, there's nobody around. He said, I'd hear people walking on the roof. And he said, at first I'm thinking, it's a crow or raven, something like that. But he said, no, it was actually like someone walking, you could hear it. And he said, I was scared to death because I figured that roof wasn't that solid that someone's going to come through. And he said, I'd run out, shine a flashlight. He said, I never saw anything other than some coyotes around, but he said it was just so weird. And it was like someone was trying to kind of just get to him. He said some of the posts from the post holes we did, the ones that weren't cemented that we had done, some of the others had been taken out. He'd go and he'd find, okay, the fence has been taken down in a section. So he said it just became, after a year or so, just so much drama. He said, I just found somebody. I told him, you know what? I don't want to pay the taxes on it, and I don't know what the drama is or who it is, and I don't really care. I'm over it. And I don't know what he paid for it, but he said it was less. And he said, he got it for a song. So he didn't really seem to care. He just was disappointed that he'd put some money and stuff into it, and nothing became of it. So we moved forward a number of years later, and I'm working, and I was out in that area. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to take this dirt road and drive by there because I'm just curious if there's anything left. So I went and go by because I figured someone's probably fixed it up and has a nice place there, has painted this place and all this. And I had a hard time figuring out where it was. Now, there was a few trees out there on the property, but there was not really much, and I really kind of thought hard about it as I knew it was in this general area. I just figured, okay, it had to be sitting somewhere. And I even parked, and I got out, and I walked, and I looked around, and I could not find anything that showed me any sign that there had been a structure there or anything else. I looked for somewhere these drill spots for the wells had been. Couldn't find that. Couldn't find none of the posts, nothing. There was no wood, barbed wire, nothing anywhere. And I was like, I gotta be in the wrong spot, but I'm pretty sure it's somewhere along this stretch. And I walked up and out. Finally, some old guy comes by in a pickup. He stops, goes, "Can I help you?" And I told him, I said, I knew a guy, and use his name. I told him, this guy, Chris. And he'd picked up this place, and we came out and did fence posts, and I was coming by because he said he got rid of it. And I was coming by to see if the new person ever fixed it up. I said I was just kind of driving through, and I thought I would just kind of take a little detour and come over here and just look and see what somebody did and whatever happened to the place. And I said, it's just mind-blowing. There's nothing here. And he said, yeah, whoever bought it came out. He said within 3 or 4 days, he said they took every single thing down. He said they dug every fence post out. They completely took down the building and got all trailered out. And he doesn't think he's really seen anybody ever there since. And I was like, that is so curious. And he said, yeah, it's kind of an unusual spot. And I said, nobody's ever thought of building, doing nothing there. He said, no. And I asked him, I said, did you know the previous owner? And he said, yeah, he was a good guy. And he said he was an older man. He said he had lost his wife, came out there. He said he seemed to be just fine out there. When he moved out there, he said at first he was a very clean cut, clean shaven, kind of nice guy, socialized with people. But he said as time went on, he kind of started to lose it. And he grew his hair and his beard out. He was kind of unkempt. And we talked about it for a bit. And I said, yeah, I kind of heard, my buddy had told me all this other stuff. And he says, there's been a lot of strangeness here. He said, a lot of it he felt. And with the guy's behavior changed when he started drilling for those wells. He said, I don't think there was a problem, but he decided he could find water on the property. And once he started drilling and putting fence posts in, for some reason there was a reaction, and he said I'd been by and he would just stand there and you could walk up and ask him how he's doing, and for 30 minutes he'd just stare off into the sky and wouldn't answer you. So he said, I think the property affected him. And I said, so whoever did this kind of knew something and decided just to kind of let it be. And he said, yeah, I never, because of the county and stuff, I never really looked up to see who would own it. I've thought about it, and if I could really kind of figure out where it is, it would be interesting to see who picked it up and talk to them. But they might not want to talk about that or any attention drawn to the spot. But this gentleman who was kind enough to, at first I think he kind of was looking to kind of spook me out of there, and then he realized, yeah, I'd been out here. I was just totally curious. And he was kind of telling me, you should just probably get back in your truck and just leave that alone. But it was a very interesting story that most of the odd things that happened on that property happened after what, in his conclusion, of when this guy was drilling for water and putting in fence posts. And sure enough, when we were out there, Chris was redoing the roof and he was putting in new fence posts and all this stuff. It had to be a pain because when we put the fence posts in, we didn't do a ton, but we put them in heavy with cement because Chris was sure people were trying to do odd things, so he wanted to make sure everything was solid. So there you go. I don't know if I've ever run into Chris ever since that time and after that, because I wanted to tell him that. Maybe he catches one of these videos someday and he hears the conversation I had with that gentleman. Maybe someone else told him all that, and that was why he was kind of like, yeah, I just got rid of it. Yeah, it was just too much trouble. I don't need to bother with it. Kind of an odd thing. I can see why they don't want attention for the property because nobody's quite sure. So, but the old man did leave me with one thing. He said sometimes it's not the person or anything else. It's just the land itself just doesn't want anybody there, and it's just going to push you away. And that kind of stuck with me, is that particular piece of property for whatever it was. And I never got a feeling of anything no animosity or anger or anything unusual. But that property just quietly in its own way was trying to tell someone, you know what, there's something here. And, you know, maybe it was a combination. Maybe there were some people who wanted that property. Who knows? Like I said, if there'd been something developed on it, then maybe I'd feel different. But like I said, when I was there, and it had to be probably 95 to 99, somewhere in that area, that time that I stopped by there, I kind of looked around and I was like, wow, there's nobody's ever, you know, they've completely erased every trace of that anybody was there. And I think it would be even harder now to kind of put it together unless you had a photograph. And I don't think I took a photograph of the place. So there you go. The mysterious shack. Huh? And who knows what became of it and what the rhyme or reason was. We don't need anybody going out there sitting down and conducting seances or any hoodoo voodoo, you know, or causing any problems. Who knows what is going on there. But an interesting story. One of the few I remember still that I haven't told. But maybe everybody kind of sticks out of the craw and they've heard of some, I know there's some odd stories of different places. And sometimes maybe it's the place. It has nothing to do with the people. It's just the place, the land itself, and nothing else. So there you go. I hope everybody's having a great time and having another great week. I hope you're having a happy October and the weather's changing for the better for all of you. I hope everybody gets out to see us November 3rd, 4th, and 5th at the Rendezvous. And I hope everybody everything goes well as you can possibly be. Remember to go to www.jacksanfelice.com and pick up your book, okay? Jack's got his new book out. He will be there. We will raffle off a copy, and I'll tell Jack to bring a number of copies because some people are asking if he has copies to bring them. They'll buy them. And I believe they're like $29.95. So there you go. Everything will go there. We should have some Dutch Hunter Rendezvous shirts, we're hoping, and some coffee cups if anybody's interested in those things. But until the next time, I hope everybody's well. I hope everybody's enjoying the fall weather. I hope I see everybody at the Rendezvous. And until the next time, remember, I'm Wayne Tuttle. You're not. And this was Chasing Legends.